Now, before I raise the hood, I need to give you somewhat of a public service announcement. What is contained underneath this sheet metal is somewhat shocking. It has never made its way to these shores, and with good reason. It defies logic, or logic that you and I would understand, but nonetheless, it has happened. So with that, I'm going to say put your drinks down. If you're eating something, finish chewing. Let me give you a second. You ready? Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now, you're first looking at that and thinking, well, that looks unusually small underneath such a big hood. Instead, you're going to look underneath this like plastic thing, and you're going to see 4 cylinders. 4 cylinders in a 7 Series in the US. And what this is a 2-liter 4-cylinder direct injected gasoline turbocharged engine. Puts out 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That torque comes in at a very low 1,250 RPM. Then the reason why this works in such a large car is there is also an electric motor. Now the electric motor, that adds 111 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, which comes from 0, as you understand with electric motors. So total system horsepower is 322, and total torque is 369, which comes in at the 1250, stays flat all the way up to 4,600 RPM. So now you can kind of understand why this isn't as shocking in terms of real-world practice. One thing that hasn't changed from the 740 or the 750, it's an 8-speed automatic, and if you opt for the 740e, you can have anything you want as long as it's all-wheel drive. Now in this case, one could say, well, what's the range in EV mode? It's kind of abysmal. It's 16. But the whole logic is to match what a diesel would do. So it will do, I think, over 500 miles in range between the two. And I've been seeing anywhere between 27 and 30 mpg from this size car. All of the usual driving dynamics bits are born out of Freude am Fahren, which is to say control arms here, 5-link here, and as of late it's got practically every computer to drive this thing and keep it in a lane, and even drive itself for like 30 seconds. But what you and I really need to focus on is not so much the driving dynamics bits or the traditional or even the new stuff, it's the balance. When you think of a hybrid car, it's 2 propulsion systems packaged in one vehicle, which does affect driving dynamics in terms of where the weight goes. Well, here it also affects packaging. The battery to drive it for that 16 miles to drive the EV is here, which takes up some of the packaging for the trunk, but also changes in terms of the balance of where the weight is here versus in the front. Now, if I'm being completely honest, BMW is a forward-thinking company. I mean, for Christ's sake, they own their own carbon factory in eastern Washington. So you would think that they would either create their own battery factory like Nissan has, or they would contract for a different battery manufacturer to spread this around to here, because you've got such a big, long car. You would think you could disperse the weight, package the battery differently, and frankly, it's not just change the weight distribution back to what the 750 or 740 is. It really is a function of perhaps getting more range and make it more like a Volt rather than this like 16-mile thing. Okay, so let's put this aside and let's get to the business of a 7 Series. I decided not to work. Let's get to the business of a 7 Series and understand what it's like to be an executive, even though that E means electric. So I feel I've been a little bit misleading in getting you to the interior of the car because it's not entirely about the interior. There's still some driving dynamics bits we need to unpack here. And you're looking at it. Look at how I can cross my legs. The seat is here. This is how I would drive the car. which is to say the 740e is on offer at anything you want as long as it's long wheelbase in the US, which translates to 206.2 in terms of length and 126.4 in terms of wheelbase. So that's to say this is a hell of a car for executives, families. I mean, you could put a lot of Rugrats back here. But I gotta tell you, I haven't been shy in telling you I'm not a huge fan of the way this car looks. I mean, it's handsome, but it's not pretty. It's a 50-footer, basically. When you walk up to it and you're 50 feet away, you're like, man, I can totally see what the designers were going for here. But then as you get closer, you start to see lines in too many places and creases, and it doesn't look as elegant as the Mercedes, if I'm really honest. And now that I've seen the LS500, I would argue the LS500, while they made this huge shift in the design of that thing, it sits below this and it comes out 2 years later. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent on design. Notice that yes, it may not be pretty, but man, is it elegant in here. Look at all the detailing. Like all of this, I think it's, if it's not Nappa leather, it's semi-aniline leather. And it's not just the seats, it's the seats, the door tops, and the dash. And this was, for me, quite a learning experience, because I literally dropped off that 540 at San Francisco airport, and I picked this car up at Los Angeles airport. So I got out of a car that I thought was beautiful on the interior. Same, I mean, the design, the whole thing, you would think you just went from one 540 to maybe a 550 because this is a bit nicer. But in reality, you look at the details like the dash top or this kind of stuff, it was nice in that car, and I told you in that episode, but here it's to another level. And yeah, this car is what, $100,000+, and that 540, even the way it was equipped, Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, $82,000. Now there is some other really neat detailing here, like they've got this floodlight here, and they've got this pattern of light that repeats out to what they call a light blanket. So when you're approaching the car at night, open the door, this same pattern is on the ground on either side of the car. You know me, I love my party tricks, and that one I really like. So in summary, what do we got? Well, I strongly feel we have an equation you and I are going to see a lot more of in the future, not just from the likes of BMW. Mercedes has already done this, Cadillac has done this, and I believe we will see some others coming down the pike. Like, I wouldn't be shocked in the new LS500 if we see an LS200T like hybrid to compete with this car. So until the first drive review, I want to turn this around to you guys and leave you guys with a question. And the question is very specific. Forget about the EV part. With a car like this, what is this, 82,000 to start, the way this one sits is over 100,000 US. Would you be put off by the fact that that has a 4-cylinder engine? Because at the end of the day, people who buy a car like this, fuel economy on their list of buying considerations from 1 to 10, probably 28. And for good measure, let me know what region of the world you come from, because I feel a car like this would sell very well in a place like London or Northern Europe, probably not so well here in the US. And now granted, this is before you and I even get to drive it. We will unpack the driving dynamics and the power and all that kind of stuff in the full first drive review, so make sure you come back for that. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Number one, make sure to download our fancy updated application, which now works specifically for Season 7, as you have seen. And yes, we are still live on 5 international airlines. And number two, I want to leave you with a fun fact. So if I'm honest, I've been playing a little bit of a game with this car. 15 miles range kind of sucks, but I live about 8 miles from the studio, and I've been doing specifically a lot of errands with this car. Like errands, frankly, I normally would like walk to in town, like going to the library or going to the post office. I've been deliberately doing in this car to see if I can live with a 7 Series on total EV for like 10 days. Until I see you for the full first drive review, bis später.